What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to the video. Today, we're going to talk about 10 drivers who could return to the Cup Series in the near future. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. In the recent months, in recent years, a lot of drivers indicated that have been retired or have not been racing the Cup Series for a long time have been interested in wanting to come back to the Cup Series. So today, like I mentioned, we're going to talk about 10 drivers who could potentially return to the Cup Series in the near future. The first driver who could return to the Cup Series in the coming future is Kurt Busch. Now, Kurt Busch last competed in NASCAR in 2022 at the Cup Series race at New Hampshire. But unfortunately, at Pocono Speedway the next week, while Kurt Busch is in the final round of qualifying, Kurt Busch suffered a pretty bad crash and unfortunately has been sidelined due to concussion-like symptoms. Kurt Busch has been trying to return to the track as soon as possible. Unfortunately, though, at this current moment, he has not been medically cleared. But Kurt Busch has been giving updates time and time again on his possibility of coming back. And Kurt Busch says he's continuing to work time and time again on getting back to the Cup Series and getting back to the track. I think Kurt Busch has a really good chance and a really strong possibility of returning in the not-so-near future. The big question is going to be, when will it happen? Well, I think it could happen sometime in the 2023 season. Obviously, they have that third 2311 racing car that we've seen Travis Pastrana run, and Kamui Kobayashi will be running later this year. Indy Road Course run so far this year, and I imagine that they are waiting for Kurt Busch to get cleared so he can get back to the racetrack really, really soon. I don't know exactly when Kurt Busch should come. I would love to see him have a shot, maybe come back in Las Vegas later this year, maybe Chicago Street Course in the next week or so. Nonetheless, I think Kurt Busch does have a really strong chance and a really strong possibility of returning, and I could see Kurt Busch returning to the NASCAR Cup Series in the near future. He's the first driver I see potentially returning in the coming months and years. The second driver who could return to the Cup Series in the near future is Kasey Kahne. Now, Kasey Kahne last competed in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2018, driving the number 95 for Leavine Family Racing. He was supposed to finish in 2018 and retire at the end of 2018, but due to dehydration issues, the last race he would run, I believe, was at Darlington Raceway, or the race before at Bristol Motor Speedway. But Kasey Kahne has not competed full-time in NASCAR since, or in NASCAR at all in general. However, not too long ago, Kasey Kahne spoke to the media at the throwback race while he was being honored as one of the greatest 75 NASCAR Cup Series drivers and NASCAR drivers of all time. And Kasey Kahne said he'd be interested in maybe making a return to the NASCAR Cup Series. And Kasey Kahne did say that his health is a lot better now compared to where it was back in 2018. He's been taking care of his health a lot more, and it seems like he is a lot more of a healthy driver. He's also been really focused on the World of Outlaws as well, where he's had 2 full-time World of Outlaws seasons, albeit those races are way shorter than what we see in the next-gen car, but he's racing a lot more race full-time with the World of Outlaws, so I think that experience from that would really help Kasey Kahne. Now, by a big question with Kasey Kahne, what team could he drive for? Well, you've obviously got the Project 91 car, the Trackhouse car, that could be available for Kasey Kahne, and then you also have the third 2311 racing car, which would be really, really cool for him to drive that 2311 racing car, the third one. He also could join the Truck Series as well, where he could drive for Kyle Busch Motorsports, may return on a full-time basis to the Truck Series. Nonetheless, I think Kasey Kahne has a really strong chance of making a comeback and a return, and I can see Kasey Kahne returning in the not-so-distant future. The third driver who could return to the NASCAR Cup Series in the near future is Greg Biffle. Now, Greg Biffle actually did race not too long ago in the Cup Series. In fact, the last time Greg Biffle did race in the Cup Series, I think it was either Atlanta or Richmond in 2022 for NY Racing. And they were supposed to run quite a few more races in 2022. Unfortunately, there were some issues that came into play that cost him a shot of running more races. But very, very recently, Greg Biffle was at Sonoma Raceway, and he expressed some interest in that maybe racing in Portland in the Xfinity Series or the Truck Series. But he also says that the Cup Series could also race at Portland in 2024 because they have a lot of fans who are up in the Portland area. And if you look at the crowd for the Portland Xfinity Series races, those have been extremely incredible and really, really awesome to see. Now, obviously, if Greg Biffle could return at any given time, because Greg Biffle will be 54 by the end of this year. At the start of 2024, if he was returning in 2024, he would be 54, would be turning 55 at the end of the year. But I think it'd be really fun and really awesome to see Greg Biffle have an opportunity and a shot to come back to the NASCAR Cup Series. I think it'd be really great for him to be there, whether it's with a good team or not. Obviously, I don't think Greg Biffle will be with a really, really good team. But I think chances of Greg Biffle returning are pretty high, and I can see Greg Biffle returning in the not-so-distant future. The fourth driver who could return to the NASCAR Cup Series in the not-so-distant future is Carl Edwards. Now, Carl Edwards is the longest tenured driver on this list who has not raced. The last time Carl Edwards raced in NASCAR in general was at the end of 2016 when he was competing for a championship and was in the Final Four and had that really, really bad crash and walked away from the sport in 2016. He's been around time and time again in the sport, but most recently in 2023, Carl Edwards has been around the sport a lot more. He said in the Fox Sports booth that is not 100% ruling out a potential return to NASCAR. He also spoke to the media and said that he had planned to go to Trackhouse Racing and check out the shop since he's really good friends with Justin Marks. He did go ahead and check out that shop. Now, Carl Edwards is actually once again going to be back this upcoming week at Nashville Super Speedway. So this is the second time in about a month and a half now that we've seen Carl Edwards more involved in the sport. So I think, and we've obviously known that there were a lot of rumors that Carl Edwards was potentially going to drive for 2311 Racing in that third 2311 racing car. Eventually we found out it will be Travis Pastrana. But I think there is a really good chance and possibility that Carl Edwards can make a return. I think most likely there's two teams that are in potential possibilities. You got 2311 Racing and Trackhouse Racing. I think those are the two favorites potentially for Carl Edwards to return. But like I said, I think Carl Edwards has a decent chance of returning. This is the most he's been active around the sport. I don't see Carl Edwards doing like a full season anytime soon, but maybe like a one-off or a two-off running a couple races. I think to get some closure with the fans like myself, because I think Carl Edwards left on some really bad terms with a lot of his fans. I think coming back and doing one race or two races would bring some really good closure to the fans. So I think Carl Edwards could return, and he might return in the future. The fifth driver who could return to the Cup Series is Matt DiBenedetto. Now, Matt DiBenedetto is still racing to this day in NASCAR. He currently drives full-time in the Truck Series for Rackley WAR Racing. The last time he competed in the Cup Series was in 2021, driving for the Wood Brothers organization. Now, Matt DiBenedetto actually did a very solid job driving for the Wood Brothers organization, as he actually nearly made the playoffs in 2021 and did make the playoffs in 2020 and did have some very solid runs. And compared to the guy that's driving now, that being Harrison Burton, I think Matt DiBenedetto did a much better job than Harrison Burton. Now, Matt DiBenedetto has said somewhat that he's not interested as an now coming back, but I actually think that Matt DiBenedetto, with how well he's been running with the Rackley WR Racing organization, I think that there actually is a decent chance and a decent possibility that we could see Matt DiBenedetto back in the Cup Series in the not-so-distant future. Let me explain. There are some rides that could be potentially available at the end of the 2023 season. You do have Spire Motorsports that could have a ride that is open. And then you also have Junior Motorsports that could jump up to the Cup Series in 2024. If Dale Jr. was to start a Cup team, I think Matt DiBenedetto would be a really good choice and a really good driver to bring into the team. I think there's a chance Matty D comes back. I think he deserves another shot and opportunity of racing the Cup Series. I think he's a very underrated driver, probably too much of an overhated driver in my opinion. I mean, he's bringing Rackley WR Racing into a playoff fight right now in the Truck Series, which is extremely impressive, beating some really talented drivers in the Truck Series right now and better equipment. Guys like Roger Crew and Haley Deegan, he's beating right now in the points. So I think Matt DiBenedetto's done a really, really good job, and I think it'd be really cool to have him back in the Cup Series in the near future. The sixth driver who I could see return to the Cup Series in the near future is Cole Custer. Now, Cole Custer actually just last year in 2022 raced full-time in the number 41 car for Stewart Haas Racing. And currently this year in 2023, he is driving the 00 car for Stewart Haas Racing Xfinity. Now, the year started off not on a very, very good note for Cole Custer. However, very, very recently, especially over the last 5 or 6 weeks, or really the last 7 to 8 weeks in particular, Cole Custer's been turning up the wick. He has an average finish like a 4th place and has been finishing up front a lot more consistently and just picked up his first win not too long ago at Portland Raceway. And obviously Cole Custer, like I said, with that Cup experience, I think that is really helping him out because it seems like in Xfinity Series, he's a championship threat. Now, obviously, Cole Custer did struggle in the Cup Series of 3 years. He raced there despite winning at Kentucky in his rookie season, which you got to admit that pass that he made was really, really impressive. I think there is a very good, decent chance he comes in back. The question is going to be, does he go to the 10 car, to 41 car if he was returned? Or maybe, just maybe, he drives for Rick Ware Racing. There could be a couple Rick Ware rides that are available heading into the 2024 season. And maybe, just maybe, someone from one of those teams decides to pick him up. We'll see what happens, but I think that Cole Custer does have a decent chance and a decent possibility of maybe, just maybe, returning to the Cup Series. The 7th driver who could return to the Cup Series in the near future is John Hunter Nemechek. Now, John Nemechek last raced full-time in the Cup Series in 2020, driving the number 38 car for Farmer Motorsports. But he did make some select Cup starts in 2022. Actually, I only think made one start, and that was in the number 23 truck car for 2311 Racing, which a lot of us thought that he was going to go maybe eventually full-time to 2311 Racing. Now, John Nemechek's name has been brought up a lot in conversations for the future, maybe in 2024, as obviously there's a lot of talk about the future of Mark Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin, but it sounds like it's likely at this point that Denny Hamlin and Mark Truex Jr. are going to return in the 2024 season. That means John Hunter could be out right now of running full-time in the Cup Series in the near future. But I think it'd be really fun and really great to see John Hunter have a shot to come back to Cup. He's a much older driver and a much more mature driver nowadays, to where he handles pressure a lot better and he handles it a lot more consistently. So I think it'd be fun to have him back at the Cup Series, and maybe, just maybe, someone picks him up. Maybe somehow the 10 car becomes available and super hot at that 10 car if Almirola retires, and maybe we see him go to the 10. But I think there is a decent shot he goes back up the Cup next year, but we'll have to wait and see what happens when it comes to his future. The 8th driver who could return to the Cup Series in the near future is Daniel Hamrick. Now, Daniel Hamrick did only have one full-time season in the Cup Series, and that was 2019 with Rich Schultz Racing. And we all know very well that that season went really, really bad and went horrendously. And the next year, Tyler Reddick drove for that team. He was a playoff contender. But you have to remember, RCR in 2019 was very, very bad. Now, Daniel Hamrick has sporadically raced in the Cup Series from time to time. He drove one race for 2311 Racing in the 23 car, and he also did go ahead and drive quite a few races in the Cup, basically in the Cup Series in 2023, basically in Cup Series 2023, or 2022, excuse me, with Kaulig Racing when he had that number 16 car. So Daniel Hamrick does have some Cup experience. But he also does have some sponsorship funding with South Point. If you got sponsorship funding, if you're part of the Kaulig team, you might be able to drive one of the Kaulig cars. Obviously, we don't know the future of the drivers of Kaulig Racing, but maybe, just maybe, Kaulig decides to run that 3rd car. Maybe decides to run a 13 car on a part-time basis. Who really knows? But I can see Daniel Hamrick having a shot and having a potential possibility of jumping into the Cup Series once again next year. He might be a decent contender for a Cup ride. The 9th driver who could join the Cup Series or return to the Cup Series in the future is Brett Moffitt. Now, Brett Moffitt has made quite a few starts in the Cup Series, but the last time I think Brett Moffitt competed full-time was in 2015 when he drove for 2 organizations, that being the 55 car for Michael Waltrip Racing. Brian Vickers was out at the time, and he also drove the number 34 car for Front Row Motorsports when David Reagan eventually went over to drive the 55 car for the remainder of that season. And Brett Moffitt, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated drivers in NASCAR today. He always competes up front. He always competes for decent positions, and I think he's got a decent car. He's been running really well with AM Racing. Obviously, they got a Stewart-Haas Racing Alliance in Xfinity, but I think that Brett Moffitt has been doing a very solid and a very, very good job, and I think he deserves another shot and another opportunity at a Cup ride. I think he'd do a very solid job and do a pretty good job in that number 25 car if he got the shot and opportunity. So I think he's got a decent shot, and maybe, just maybe, Brett Moffitt might get a shot an opportunity in the long-term future. But the biggest thing holding him back is sponsorship funding, and he's also had some relationships not so great with some teams, so that would hurt his opportunity to go Cup racing in the future. And a 10th and final driver who I think could join the Cup Series and return to the Cup Series is Trevor Bayne. Now, Trevor Bayne last competed in the Cup Series back, I think, in 2018 or 2019. So it's been a very, very long time. He's been sporadically racing in other series. The Truck Series drove for Nice Motorsports and did a pretty solid job with that team. And then most recently, in 2022, Trevor Bayne competed with Joe Gibbs Racing and was competing up front for wins and did a very good job in that 18 car. Now, Trevor Bayne does say that he is planning to make some select starts with Joe Gibbs Racing in 2023, but he did say that he almost did have a potential full-time ride in the Truck Series or with another series for 2023, but unfortunately the sponsorship he had, I'm guessing Devotion Nutrition, kind of fell through for him. So that hurt Trevor Bayne. Again, the biggest thing is sponsorship funding for Trevor Bayne is one of the big reasons why Trevor Bayne has not competed in the Cup Series most recently. That being said, I think it'd be really cool for Trevor Bayne to get a shot. I think Trevor Bayne will do better, and I think with how good he's been doing in the Xfinity Series and even the series he ran in, I think it would be really cool to see him have a shot and an opportunity to return to the Cup Series in the near future. So, that is going to be today's special video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, notifications on if I win a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links are below over that, and comment below your thoughts below, and comment below which drivers you think could return to the Cup Series in the near future. Later today on the channel, I have Xfinity Series race picks on the channel for the Tennessee Lottery 250 at National Super Speedway with the Xfinity Cup Series Truck Series returning. We'll also, tomorrow on the channel, have 2 videos on the channel. We're going to be talking about the Josh Berry announcement, and we're also going to be talking about some news that's come out over the last couple of days. Then on Thursday, we'll have NASCAR Cup Series race picks from Nashville, and then Friday we'll have a NASCAR news video along with the Truck Series race review, followed by Saturday we'll have the Xfinity Series race review from Nashville, and then Sunday we'll have the Cup Series race review from Nashville. Should be really, really fun and really exciting as NASCAR is back and they go to NBC. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.